let's get into the Fool's Fate. Starting with spoiler warning, I will spoil most of the Tawny Man Trilogy and probably a lot from the Farseer Trilogy and maybe even Liveship Traders Trilogy. So if you are not caught up to this point in the realm of the Elderlings, this will not be spoiler safe. The first 2 books in the series I did reading vlogs. I chose not to do that this time, but I also didn't make notes, so I am just going to talk. I don't know that I will go so much in chronological order of the book, so much as go character relationship by character relationship. Because that's the part that I really care about anyway and want to talk about, are those relationships between Fitz and the other characters. And I think I'll actually start with the one that was absent from this one. Absent physically, but certainly not emotionally, and that is Night Eyes. I was actually really worried that Fitz would get a new companion in this book. Or even by Golden Fool. I was worried that one would be introduced way too soon. Since this is as far as I've gotten, I don't know if Fitz will ever get another companion later in his life. I haven't read the next books yet. But I am so glad that Robin Hobb made the decision to not do that to Fitz yet. Night Eyes was with Fitz for so long and affected so much of who Fitz is. I really appreciated that through this whole trilogy, even though Night Eyes was gone by the end of the first one, through the Golden Fool and Fool's Fate, we still see how much a part of Fitz Night Eyes is. Affecting Fitz's dreams, his, how he doesn't care if something smells bad, or his time sense, ability to live in the moment, just lessons he learned from wolf life that still affect him now. And when he's dream sharing, skill, dreaming, whatever, with Nettle, and Nettle still sees him in his wolf shape, even though he's not bonded to Night Eyes anymore. It's still such a part of him. That's still how Nettle sees him. Since I'm there, I'll talk about Nettle next. I feel like I haven't really gotten to talk about her. She hasn't really been a character in any of the other books. She's very background in the first 2 of this trilogy, and by this one, we're finally seeing her in person. I thought the way that her relationship with Fitz was handled was actually very realistic. The way that Fitz has it so built up in his mind what it will be like to finally reveal himself to his daughter. And then the way that it was nothing like that at all. It was kind of anticlimactic. She finds out without Fitz having to even tell her. And then it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you're my father. There was no big emotional reaction. Nettle kind of kept her feelings to herself. She held back. She doesn't know how she feels about Fitz. She does want to feel like Fitz cares about her as a person, as a part of his family, and she tests that, which I think is totally normal, the whole way it was portrayed. If in real life a older teen, mid to older teen, finds out that this person they've been building a friendship with is actually their father, it felt like how it would probably actually be. Except Nettle probably didn't hate Fitz as much as she would have in real life. But it wasn't open arms. I don't know, just that awkwardness, what does this even mean for either of us? I don't know. Felt very accurate. I thought Dutiful's characterization changed a lot between Fool's Errand and Fool's Fate. He started so young, inexperienced, immature. I think he was only 14, which means he's only 15, maybe 16 by the end of this one. And realistically, a teenager that age does change a lot between being a fresh new teenager and kind of a mid to older teenager. There's a lot of growth and maturing that happens there, but I found myself feeling like it felt almost like a different character by this book. Whereas with Fitz, he feels like the same character the whole time. None of my predictions about Chade came true. He becomes a skill user finally. He slowly grows. His skill in the skill grows so much slower than he wants it to. He's not used to being so far advanced in his life and being so bad at something and having people younger than him, more in tune and more experienced than him. I know I talked about this about the first 2 books in the trilogy, about how his relationship specifically with Fitz changed and evolved so much. There was so much growth to that relationship. I really liked the way their relationship went. There was tension, there were disagreements, but they were still always on the same side. They're always still fighting for the same cause, and they still both appreciate their relationship even through all the changes it's been through. And one thing I wanted to say about Chade is I love that he gets to live this it feels like such a childish thing for him, but he's so excited about his gunpowder. They don't call it gunpowder. It hasn't been invented in this world yet. This powder that is explosive and dangerous. And he had been experimenting with it, and he got to take it to try to free the dragon. And finally the time comes where he gets to use it. And he's just so excited, and it was so cute. It reminds me of when my brothers and my husband and their friends were all young teens and taking apart fireworks to make more explosive versions. And Chade's excitement reminded me of that. Like, he's just a young boy at heart having fun, making things explode. And we start to see from Fitz's point of view, as Fitz gets to know Chade now that Fitz is an adult and is seeing more like what Chade is really like, how Chade values power and wants to have it, and there's like this battle of wills between them to where you feel like Chade could become a villain if he didn't also have love in his heart for the Farseers. If his desire for power were a little stronger than his love for Fitz and Dutiful and Kettricken, that might tip things. So it's like Chade is not naturally a good guy or a bad guy. He has the potential for both, and he's choosing to be the defender of the Farseers. I don't know if there's any crossover in fans between this series and Anne of Green Gables, but just in case there's any fans of that series watching this, it's like how Anne Shirley doesn't want to marry someone who's wicked, but it might be nice if he could be and chooses not to. I feel like that's how Chade is. He could be, but he's choosing not to. Okay, now the relationship that I thought I was going to start with, and it got away from me, but that's fine. So when I was filming my reading vlog for Golden Fool, I had finished reading that and started reading this one before finishing filming that clip, and I was like, I already knew what happened at the beginning of this one, but I couldn't talk about it yet. So now I can, freely. At the end of Golden Fool, you think that Swift has been let go by his father, Burrich. You think, or we are made to think, that Burrich has finally given up on him and said, fine, go give into your whip magic, get out of here, I disown you. That did not sit well with Fitz, nor does it probably sit well with any of us reading it. Like, that's not the Burrich we know. As far as we know, he is more determined with his own children than he ever was with Fitz. So it didn't really come as a surprise starting this one to find out that that had been forged. Not forged like the magical thing that happens in this series, but like forgery of Burrich's name. Nettle helped Swift get away. And so Swift has, again, snuck off, run away from home, been dishonest. And it's kind of relieving to find out that that was not Burrich's character to send his own son away. It's like, I was right about Burrich. But for me personally, one of the things that had been spoiled for me by being in fantasy groups online, can be dangerous, was that at the end, Fitz and Molly get back together. So because that had been spoiled for me, I knew that something was going to have to happen with Burrich. Burrich and Molly do not live happily ever after. So I didn't know if that was going to be Burrich just leaving Molly because of his guilt for having stolen him from Fitz once he finds out that Fitz is alive, or if he was going to die. That whole thing was really emotional. In the last book, when it was like Burrich and Swift were riding down the road and Fitz sees Burrich, but Burrich doesn't know who Fitz is, that was emotional. Because I was like, what if he sees him? What could happen? What if? But then in this one, Burrich actually comes. Fitz never knew his real father. He probably doesn't even realize how much deep-seated trauma he has from not having his real father in his life, even at 35 years old. And Burrich has filled a big part of that spot in Fitz's life. And the fact that Burrich traveled all that way, chasing down two of his boys, the adopted one and the birth one, knowing that he came just as much for Fitz as for Swift, that was super impactful. Fitz did not know how Burrich would respond to finding out he was alive. And having Burrich find out he's alive and just run to him, I felt like was perfectly in line with Burrich's character. Just what we as fans would want to see from Burrich and would want for Fitz. Swift wasn't necessarily so happy. He would have liked to just finish the mission and then go home. I think it was a good time, though, for Swift and Burrich to work on repairing their relationship. And if Burrich hadn't come and he hadn't run in and save his boys, he would probably still be alive. And Robin Hobb could have just had Burrich die of old age. He's not very healthy. He's getting up there in years. He and Molly could have had their happily ever after, and then Fitz could come in and get Molly. But no. We had to have this huge, impactful, emotional thing where Burrich chases down his sons and then dies doing it. Oh man, it's fine. I will agree, though, with the person who spoiled it for me that I didn't need Fitz and Molly to get back together. I thought it was a little bit cheesy and unnecessary. Fitz had accepted that she was not in his life. Molly had accepted that he was not in her life. She has all these children. All the reasons that Fitz had for not marrying her, I feel like are still there. The only reason it's not as important now is because most people think he's dead and he can live as Tom Badgerlock, which should protect Molly and Molly's children. We'll see. I just felt like that resolution did not need to happen. It was one of the things where at the end, when it felt like it was taking way too long to wrap up, I was like, do we need this? Do we need the story to keep going and have Fitz reconnect with his old lost teenage love? I felt like it was unnecessary, and it would have been more poignant to have him rebuild his relationship with his daughter, which he is also trying to do. So there's that. All right, two more. Thick is one of my favorite characters, far more relatable to me than I feel like he should be. So much about Thick just strikes me right to the heart. I was so afraid of how his characterization was going to be handled. I was afraid that something incredibly heartbreaking was going to happen with him. Like he would finally build up his trust with Fitz, only for Fitz to somehow let him die or ruin his trust forever or something. I thought the relationship between Fitz and Thick was very realistic. Well, I thought Thick's characterization was very realistic to start. And then the way that it was so difficult for Fitz to have to care for Thick in some of their situations, like trying to get him on the boat when Thick now has a fear of seasickness, and how that strains their trust. I love that Thick gets to be a hero. I love that his skill ability is not used and abused. It's used. Chade's going to use the tools that he has, just like he did with Fitz, even though he loved Fitz. His skill ability is used to such a degree that he gets to be a hero. But the part that got me and that just made me cry was when he and Fitz are walking and he takes Fitz's hand and tells him he loves him. Oh man, that might have been the most emotional part of the book for me. If that's weird, I don't know. I don't even care. And then the Fool. This whole trilogy I felt like was very Fool light, and Fitz's relationship with the Fool has changed so much over the course of the whole series. And earlier on in this trilogy, when the Fool thought it would be so much fun to have Fitz as his servant and to just tease him about that new dynamic in their relationship, and it wasn't as fun as he thought it was going to be. But then that big tension of misunderstanding and Fitz forcing admissions from the Fool and forcing it to come out in the open definitely changed things the most. And I don't really know how Fitz felt. So in The Golden Fool, when Fitz confronts the Fool, Fitz can only see their relationship from his very human point of view. And so when the Fool is admitting how deeply he feels for Fitz, and I would hold nothing back, Fitz can only comprehend that in a romantic or sexual way, which makes Fitz super uncomfortable. Fitz only feels friendship, nothing romantic or sexual in any way for the Fool. But then when we get to this book, and the Fool is describing his feelings more in a way that Fitz can understand, where he's like, okay, your relationship with Night Eyes, did you hold yourself back at all from Night Eyes? Did you place any bounds? Is that the word he used? I would place no bounds on this relationship. And he's asking Fitz, did you place any bounds on your relationship with Night Eyes? And Fitz is like, well, no. According to Black Rolf, he should have, but he just let himself go fully to Night Eyes. And the Fool is using that as his analogy. And so then when he confronts Fitz about, okay, well, why wouldn't you have sexual relations with Night Eyes? Obviously only because he's a male, right? And Fitz was like, what? What are you talking about? No, ew. And realizing that that's kind of the place where the Fool is coming from, that the Fool is so far removed from being a human that now Fitz is like, has he always seen me as just like an animal? Like the way I saw Night Eyes? Like he doesn't even know what to think now. It's so confusing. And I wish that the Fool hadn't had to suffer so much. I hate torture. I don't want to read books about it. I wish it wasn't included. I feel like the only reason it was at all was to give a new level of understanding between Fitz and the Fool because of what Fitz has been through, pain-wise and trauma-wise, and now the Fool can have some understanding of what Fitz has been through. I wish it hadn't been included, but it was there. And part of my annoyance with the end of this book and how long it dragged on, I felt like the resolution with the Fool and that relationship just took so much longer than was necessary. Like, Fitz could have come, recovered his body, and they could have gone through their whole, like, resurrection or whatever in a much shorter space of time, traveling back to where the dragons were, and I mean, I guess that served its purpose. Fitz got back what he had given to that dragon. The whole thing with the feathers seemed anticlimactic, but it's what caused the Fool to be able to come back. It was all just very weird. I found myself kind of wondering what the point of handling it all that way was. And then at the end, Fitz and the Fool don't even see each other again. That's just that. And Fitz is going on to lead his life and all this resolution with Molly. It was just a weird ending. It was weird. In the end, the Fool's prediction about himself was true. He did die. And then Fitz, his catalyst, changed the course of reality. It was interesting seeing two different other prophets. I think it was healthy for the Fool to encounter two such different ways that his life could go or could have gone. And then for us, the readers, to understand a little more about the type of creature that the Fool is and where he comes from. There's a lot more magic in the realm of the Elderlings than we are given. I hope in the next couple of series, all the magic is expanded on a little more. I still want to see a wit magic user bond with a dragon. I don't know if that's possible, the way the Elderlings work and like what we've learned from Selden Vestrit. I don't know if it's possible. The way the dragons are portrayed is so powerful to just completely overtake a human's mental capacities. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I think the next series is the Rain Wild Chronicles. So we'll get more dragons and then back to Fitz and the Fool, which I'm very impatient for. I fully enjoyed all three of these books and I really, really want to continue on. I have other books I'm reading first, but after having enjoyed this trilogy so much, I'm excited to go on and read the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings. I will link this trilogy of books in the description, as well as my Instagram and my Patreon. Thank you, patrons. I appreciate you guys a ton. Let me know what you thought of the series, and happy reading. Bye.